you know, by now you should have figured something out about me. I love tech. Now, I don't just mean computers. I love all sorts of technology. Like I have a high efficiency furnace, right? It's as good as it gets for natural gas. 97% efficient. Wow. That means 3% of the energy goes out the pipe and the other 97 stays in the house. What a brilliant thing that is. You might also realize that I love the PCs, and I've been working actually recently to try to help an AI company not write their software or anything, but use it with a large number of people that I'm familiar with. So that's been kind of cool. I have to tell you some great stories though about tech and how it bombs and how politicians can really screw it up. I mean, okay, imagine you're running a hospital, okay? Imagine your hospital has 1,000 beds. That's a huge hospital. It doesn't matter where you are. Okay. Now, imagine that you've probably got 10,000 people, okay, that are relying on the data flow in that hospital. Okay. Good. Oh, pretty good, right? Okay. And in the middle of a weekend, you hire some guy to come in and put in a new computer system, and you don't run parallel systems. What's parallel systems? Well, okay, what you wind up with is like two different computers side by side that are called servers. These are very, very big, powerful PCs. Nowadays, by the way, they're still pretty small. And what you get is data flow. Now, if the new one, for some reason, doesn't do what it's supposed to do, you know what you do? You turn it off. Yeah, and you let the old one do what it was doing. It may be a little bit, grumbly doing what it does, but it'll do it. And it's not that hard to do. I mean, really, it isn't. Okay? So, about 15 years ago, I'm on my way to a hospital, and I'm not sick. I'm a driver. But my passenger is going in for radiation therapy. So, what do? I got a phone call. I'm 5 minutes from the hospital. It has taken me 40 minutes in early morning traffic to get from where we were starting to the hospital. To the block from the hospital, anyway. Finally, my phone rings. Now, I'm not expecting a phone call, so I answer it from the car. That was still legal. It still is, actually. You can talk on the phone. But anyways, it's a bad idea. So I'm talking to this person who says, we're just telephoning to tell you that the patient's appointment is canceled. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm a block from you. And they're like, well, we have to cancel because we have a new computer and it's not working. I said, well, then how did you get my number if you don't have any idea? Because they said, well, okay, it's kind of working. And I said, what is kind of working? And they said, well, like the characters are coming up on the screen like one at a time every minute, which is a nice way of saying, if they knew what they were talking about, that the interface card or system between the server and all the different clients was too small, and some idiot didn't know how to put it together and make it work right and make sure that the data flow would be appropriate. Some part of the system was a, small link. It's like trying to run a dishwasher using a capillary tube, right? You're just not going to get the water in there in the allotted time. So they said, well, how about you come in for patient education? I guess they felt guilty or something. So we went in. And then we left. And, of course, the person who was with me is a brilliant administrator. And as soon as we got the phone call and I relayed the info, her expression was, oh, wizard! Now, wizard's a funny expression. It can be a good thing, or it can be a bad thing. It depends how you say it, not the word. So if you say, oh, wizard, that's a good thing. If you say, oh, wizard, that's a bad thing. Okay? And in this case, she thought it was a very bad thing. Not because she was terribly worried about dying at that particular moment or anything. She was okay. But she said, this is so avoidable. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I can go to my hairdresser and I can walk in the door and I can leave my hairdresser. And a month later, if I pick up the phone, I can say, when's the next appointment? They don't have a computer. They have a really big book. And they flip through, and they make an appointment, and they write down what I want. Needs hair colored, wants hair cut, whatever, It's pretty simple stuff. What are the details? Well, we don't worry about the details till we get there. Well, cancer, okay, it's a little more detailed than that, I get it. But still, it's okay to keep track of things in advance. You don't have to do a tremendous amount of this. Just what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, let's face it, if it takes longer than a day to get a problem like that fixed, you're a total idiot. So, they didn't run parallel systems, and they didn't print out any sort of stuff in advance. Because that's common sense. That's what you do. I had a boss who had what was it called, a customer information system? I forget the name of it. Once a week, Al used to print out his stuff. And that list was something he lived by. It gave him all the calls he had to make to all the customers for a week to make a living and then some. Good guy, Anyway, so I appreciate the idea of the list and what to do with it. Then, 15 years go by. And the next thing that happens, yesterday, our illustrious premier hired somebody along the road in the last 12 months to write a piece of software. I'm not really sure why that was necessary, but anyway. He had the piece of software written to keep track of how many people would have appointments to get vaccinations at a certain place and then call in people to do the vaccination. Now, here's where it gets good. From yesterday, if you watched it, that there was a 2-hour lineup around the building, outside. Ooh, what happened? Well, in the news this morning, they confess the software screwed up. That's great. You've had an entire year to get the thing written, tested, and push it. Just with fake data to see what would happen. Did you do it? Of course not. You're an insurance sales rep. You're not a premier. You should quit. Really. You don't know how to pick people to write software. You don't even know what high-level language means. Give your head a shake and resign. But back to the story. This is where it gets really good. They apologized, and they said, and we called in the number of people we needed. No, they didn't. What they did is they called in the number of people that should have been there first thing in the morning to give the people their vaccinations. Instead of saying, we need a whole lot more people for a brief period of time to get that line from 2 hours down to 15 minutes, which is the expected wait time that they did give us. Now, that would take 8 times the number of staff, right? Well, if you can't do it, you need to go outside and tell an hour and 45 minutes worth of people to go home. And set another appointment up on a Saturday or sometime when you're not working. Whatever. Figure it out. But for God's sake, making people stand outside in the cold at 5 degrees who are in their 80s all day is ridiculous. But did they handle it in any way? No, not at all. Not even the faintest way. All day yesterday, after they finally got enough people, the right number that they were supposed to have in the first place, the lineup was 2 hours long because people had appointments and they kept them. So folks, here's the point. We've got a conservative government and it's trying to run a province, and this is a simple schedule. Stick a needle in your arm, take it out, and make you sit still for half an hour issue. I mean, we're not talking about rocket science here. We're not talking about floating a bond issue with New York. We are not going out and setting up a rocket that'll land itself and not blow up like Elon Musk is doing. We're not asking anybody to reinvent the wheel, to come up with a source of power that comes from fusion without setting a new sun on fire. We're asking you to make an appointment and not screw up, to write a piece of software and not have it bugger up. And know the difference between hiring somebody who knows what they're doing when they write a piece of software and doesn't, by saying, give me your plan for development and testing. The man's an insurance sales rep. He needs to go. The whole party is a bunch of hicks. They all need to go. Stop electing these twerps. We just got rid of Stephen Harper, and no sooner than we did that than you elected Brian Pallister, whose nickname I think is Barney Scissorhands, because he likes to cut. I'm Patrick Stewart. I never vote Conservative. Why the hell you would, I have no idea, and you should stop if you do.